And hello, everyone. I am John O'Loughlin. Welcome to my channel. It's called McDuff Lives. And this morning it's 11 a.m. here on November 21st of 2022. And it's a red shirt day. As you can tell, I'm delighted to wear this beautiful shirt my wife gave me last Christmas. And Christmas, oh, Jesus, just a month away. Isn't it interesting to consider these ideas of what's superior, God's law or man's law, or even is there such a law? And then contrast that with the British intelligence creation of Aleister Crowley and this thelema idea, which basically is you you do whatever you want to do. And I love the idea of natural law in which there's natural consequences for acts, and if you hurt someone, you have to compensate them. Uh, I feel like that's a utopian idea, one which would require, first of all, the submission of everyone on the planet to such an idea. And most people are too afraid of what could happen if you let go of your what little control you have to do that. But it's a great idea. I think this. Uh, Agorism is based on that, the idea that the world is just a marketplace, and it's an agora, a Greek market, ancient Greek idea where you can just go and sell what you have or buy what you need. And that's a nice idea. That's James Corbett likes that idea. I've been very interested in the the different approaches to this question historically, because it's really not a new question. But before I get into my content today, let me just say hello. Um, yeah, Harry's here, Robert, Mobster, David, Charles. Hello, guys. And there's a few other people, 13 other people here on the YouTube channel. I suppose there's some on Facebook, which I don't see, but hello to you. And folks just looking at me on the simulcast on Twitter. It's good to have you with me here at McDuff Lives. McDuff Lives is about my father. This is my father over my shoulder here next to Olivia the Osprey. And he looks over my shoulder uh, while I try to do my best here to explain what I think his mission is. And my mission and our mission here at McDuff Lives is to recognize the disaster that has happened to our country and to clean it up. When the Nashville, the USS Nashville, my father's ship, was hit by a kamikaze in 1944, it was put out of action, was repaired enough to get back to the States for a proper repair I think they were in Washington State there at one of the Navy yards. At any rate, my father was in charge of the repair crew. Um, and that's a real McDuff-like moment when you realize that, yeah, there's a horrible mess that's happened, and now let's fix it. So that's what we're here for, is to try to sort out the disaster, the compounded disaster, and to pull back the layers so that we can expose the true horror of our past, and thereby give us hope for a clean and proper future where maybe one day that utopia really can happen. The promised land, the land of milk and honey. Yeah, I don't think it's over Jordan, though. I think it's here, but we got to do the work, and that's McDuff's mission. So, one of the things that we confront in looking into McDuff's life is his relationship with Alan Dulles, the sometimes CIA director, and still after he was fired by Kennedy, still a very powerful man in Washington, kind of running his own foreign policy establishment out of his Georgetown townhouse. And it was during that time that my father was transferred from the FBI to the Pentagon, where he was designated the planner for all special operations under the uh, Joint Chiefs of Staff's order from President Kennedy that they take away from the CIA all special operations, exceeding a small, tiny thing, because the CIA had screwed up the Bay of Pigs, and they screwed up a whole lot of other stuff too, Indonesia, and a whole litany of things that the American people don't know about. That's what we talk about here on McDuff Lives. We're exploring real American history through the book Who We Are. I have 11 reading and comment videos that you can see. They're in I put them up on the playlist on McDuff Lives too, if you want to just play through them all. One of them is a stray. It's on McDuff Lives 3, and so I'd have to download it and reload it. But anyway, there's 10 of the 11. You can just push the playlist, and they'll play one after another, and you can learn the stories of history that you don't know yet that really do tie everything together, by Anton Chaikin. I'll have Mr. Chaikin back soon on the show to kind of wrap up this book, and then to give us a heads up for what his volume 2 will be like. Bring back indulgences, says Mobster. Okay, that's not really the idea here, but it's a good it's a good lead into what I did want to talk about, and that is, we've talked about in the first part of the show, the one that got cut off by the cable company. Thank you, Comcast. But we're back now, and thank you, Comcast, for letting us come back on. We love you, Comcast. The subject of law is something that everybody has a different perspective on. My perspective is that the Constitution of the United States is the supreme law of the land. Why do I believe that? Well, for a number of reasons. Number one, that's what the Supreme Court says. And number two, if it's not, then we don't have any certainty as to what the law is. And that's, of course, the famous quote from Justice Marshall was, it is emphatically the duty of the court to determine what the law is. The Supreme Court. I was just reading this morning, Mr. Justice Marshall, I think, did us a very bad disservice in the Dartmouth College case, where he ruled in favor of the board of trustees of the college that had existed before the Revolution. It was a charter granted by the government of England, or the colony, I guess, of Massachusetts, to New Hampshire. At any rate, it was a charter ultimately from the British government to establish Dartmouth College, and the state of New Hampshire says, "Well, we don't like the way this college is being run, and we're going to revoke that charter, and we're going to put our own people in that are going to be responsive to the needs of the state." And I offer that as an example of where the state really should have precedence over the needs of a corporation, which, after all, is not a real person. It's just an agreement by a bunch of people. And, if it's chartered by the government, well, the government then can destroy it, right? Wrong. Chief Justice Marshall said that the original trustees had a contract, um, which could not be interfered with by the government of the United States or a state of the United States. Why? Because of part of our Constitution called the Contracts Clause, which says that the government of states cannot interfere with contracts. So, which was intended for an entirely different purpose, which I won't try to get into now. But what the bottom line is, there you go. You've got the beginnings of corporate eternity that we suffer under. That's one of the things we need to peel back and say, no, we're not going to have permanent, universally powerful corporations that ultimately just eat up everything else and quash small business right and left. No, we're not going to have that. That's one of the things we have to do to clean up the mess. Restrict these corporate entities. Overturn the Dartmouth College case. And that charter was from an enemy country. This is a 1800 and what, 1812, 1815. It's an enemy country. And yet Marshall says we have to respect it. And we followed that. So that kind of idea of follow the Constitution. What does the Constitution say about corporations? Nothing. So how much respect do we really owe corporations? Only, to the extent that the state legislature says this is a good purpose. Well, for me, after the Civil War, and he goes into it somewhat in here, the next, interesting issue is on the law is Sullivan and Cromwell and A Law Unto Itself is the book that I got, a kind of rare book. So glad to have the ability to buy it. And thank you all for the Patreons that pay for my increases of the McDuff library. So this one basically gives you the idea of, it was Sullivan and Cromwell. It started off with Sullivan, who basically was a good guy that didn't like the idea of permanent corporations and was pretty much on our side of that, on my side of that. But then he, gets elderly, and Cromwell is just running the business, the paper side of the business, creating all of these corporations. And he puts together the plan that first in New Jersey and then Rhode Island and around the country, um, the incorporation of a corporation that doesn't actually own any businesses except for it owns stock in other corporations. This being, of course, a holding company. And that holding company can just manipulate among its possessions to remain eternal. And that opened the door to what we have now is these universally powerful corporate interests that seem to do whatever they want and claim to have a rules-based order. Anyway, back to the alternatives to our legal system. We talked about with Dolores Cajo the idea of natural law, and I was starting to talk about this word that you'll see now and then, antinomianism. So once again, I'm just going to go and look at the Wikipedia and read antinomianism is any view which rejects laws or legalism and argues against moral, religious, or social norms, or is at least considered to do so. And this was the antinomian controversy that came about in the Massachusetts Bay Colony involving a very important woman named Anne Hutchinson. Now, Anne Hutchinson was brought up in England, the daughter of a preacher, and they became followers of John Cotton. John Cotton, who became a refugee and went to Massachusetts Bay in the 1630s, really early part of the Massachusetts uh, Bay colony. And Anne Hutchinson was strongly influenced by John Cotton to the extent that she started agitating against other preachers in the colony. And what was the issue that she was so upset about that she started attacking the preaching of other preachers? Well, it is the very common issue that we often run into in religious thought, and that is salvation by works versus salvation by faith. And that is a dispute that has gone on for probably as long as there's been Christianity. You can find support for both sides in the Bible, of course. But, you know, his faith alone has saved him. Does that mean that everybody is saved by faith alone? Or was it only just that one case? Or what is the power of having faith versus whether you need to earn your place in heaven by doing good works? And she was saying that the other preachers were saying, to do good works, to get to heaven, feed, clothe the poor, take care of the indigent, you know, that kind of stuff. And she objects to that. She says, no, that's not real religion. The real religion is the covenant of grace. And that means that if you are in this state of grace, that you somehow through the Holy Spirit, you understand it, oh, I am in this grace, then all of the rules and shackles of, ordinary culture no longer apply to you. Not even the Ten Commandments. And I read that and I said, well, that's extraordinarily just like Alan Dulles. Because that's what Alan Dulles says, He says, I am a Calvinist. And, in response to the question, well, how do you justify what you do? Well, in the modern terms, a Calvinist, a strict, you know, tulip, Tulip Calvinist is going to say, I am saved, I'm going to heaven, but most people out there are not. And that means that, you know, they're just taking up space. And if they are in my way, I can get them out of my way. God's already saved me. I have faith. I am in that state of grace, in other words. Imagine an Alan Dulles, that libertine, womanizing, uh, exploiter of humanity, feeling in his heart that he's in a state of grace because he's a Calvinist. So do normal rules apply if you're in a state of grace? No, that's exactly the point. No normal rules apply to a person of that certainty that they understand God's plan. They understand that God has decided that there's sheeps and goats, and I'm a sheep, and all them other ones out there. Well, let's just have a look at them, will we? Look how dirty they are. Look how they just drink and fornicate and lead these worthless lives, and you know aren't they just, those are pretty obviously not part of God's kingdom. I mean, if you're in God's kingdom, then you wear nice clothes and you go to church, and so I'm able to see, that I'm chosen and you're not. So that kind of nutcase religion, excuse me if you're a Calvinist, but it's nuts to think that way, has political power like crazy. If you can get people to think that way, then you can get them to go and commit genocide. You know, the whole idea of a covenant, where's that all that come from? This comes from ancient uh, Old Testament stuff. God made a covenant with the Hebrew people. Well, he didn't make a covenant with anybody else, did he? So we must be the chosen people. New Testament after Jesus, what do you got? A new and everlasting covenant between God and who? Christians? Maybe just Catholics? Or maybe the Catholics are wrong and it's the Orthodox? Or maybe it's neither the Catholic nor the Orthodox because they're both built on the imperial system of Constantine? Hmm. Well, then maybe it's the Protestants, the idea of you don't need this hierarchy of church and empire and bishops and cardinals and incense and chalices and icons. You don't need that because everybody can be in touch with God. you know, Everybody. Well, the trouble with that is that there's a lot of people in the world that are not Christians and are not therefore aware that they could be in touch with God. And so, geez, maybe we ought to go tell them. So let's become colonists and go out and help, the half naked, animalistic, half humans out there in the jungle to learn about Jesus and God and Christ. And yeah, so let's go do that because they couldn't possibly get to heaven if they don't even know that Jesus saved them. Yeah, good idea. Let's go. And it all gets funded by the Rockefellers. So, my view is we need to have a basic law, and that's why I'm for the Constitution. Ah, well, I'm going to go and scroll through the comments here because not only did I not get to finish my show on law and natural law and antinomianism, that I also didn't get to have my chat on Friday. So let's do it. I need less indulgences. Prepare. Oh, you need it. Turkey Day. Yeah. Okay. Have a happy Turkey Day. By the way, guys, well, this is kind of another deep subject, I guess. Have anybody looked into Alexander Dugan, uh, the father of the girl, that young woman that was murdered in the car bomb 2 or 3 months ago, uh, ostensibly by Ukrainian agents? That Alexander Dugan is very, very interesting, and I've started to study what he Uh, I haven't read any of his stuff, but I've been studying him, from what other people have said, and it looks like somebody that we're going to need to take into our studies here at McDuff Lives, because he's very much in favor of the understanding of existing culture, the preservation of it, and and then seeing where it will go, and that there are different cultures around the world, and you know the what he's identified as liberalism, and I think he's right about this, is liberalism is trying to uh, divorce everybody from their culture that they came from, give everybody, what he considers to be freedom, liberalism. So I'm no longer have to be, a Jewish, or I no longer have to be an American, or I no longer have to be, white, or I no longer have to be uh, heterosexual, or I don't know, no longer have to be bisexual, or I no longer have to be anything. I could actually, start merging with my computer and become something entirely different, a cyborg. I could become an entire cybernetic network that is me. Transhumanism. I want to be a transhuman because that would be the fulfillment of my real potential. And that's what he says liberalism is heading us toward. That's why we hear this singularity and the transhumanism and the robots and all of this, is because they are using this as some type of a positive idea, immortality, but giving up your culture, giving up your family, giving up everything just to be part of this exciting new transhuman world. Well, I think Dugan is a leader in fighting against that on a philosophical level, and I'm hopeful, from the reports that I've seen so far, that he's very influential on Putin, and that's why Putin, is resisting, if he is, the new world order. No, I don't. I don't believe it. I'm afraid that Putin, as long as he's going along with World Health Organization, he can't be trusted either. I'm sorry, guys. I wish I could, but no, this WHO agenda is just unacceptable. Completely off, no way. So as long as he's bound into that, he's not his own person, and he's not, this great leader who's going to restore us to the peace of Westphalia. Anyway, um, that idea of seeing where this liberalism is really going, I'm going to have to explore that more. Think about Elon Musk and all of this Starlink, Neuralink. He's basically building the technology that's going to make that, dystopian liberal future happen. All the while, he's guaranteeing us free speech on Twitter for us nutcase conservatives. Yeah. So this is the other part of the McDuff mission that is tied to what we're talking about here. And it also brings in President Kennedy, because President Kennedy's murder is the pivotal point of my life, in which our republic, whatever it was, at least it looked like and acted like a republic at that point, was taken over by these mob of elite gangsters that run things today. And that happened back in 1963. So it's you know, during those years before that, that we had the sense that we were actually free. But to try to make us feel like we're still free after the murder of our president and the nonsense, the total garbage of the Warren Commission, it just never happened. We haven't been free. We've been subject to this behind the scenes, behind the curtain manipulation since then, and we have to peel it back. What I was going to say was people like President Kennedy and my father were military officers in World War II. Both of them were in the Navy. And I have, his signature on this oath of accepting his commission, in which he swears to uphold, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. And it's an oath which I don't think he ever let himself off of. You know, it's like once a Marine, always a Marine. Well, I think it's the same thing with a veteran, especially a veteran of World War II. So how can you not honor the sacrifices of all of our military who swore not to defend the president, not to defend the nation, not to defend the borders of the country, not to defend uh, uh, a- anything except for the Constitution. So that is why, McDuff's mission is to continue protecting and defending the Constitution and restoring the lawful legal government. President Kennedy was challenged on the issue of his religion. He was a Catholic. And, the common criticism of Catholics is that they will follow the Pope and not the law. Would you trust a Catholic, with the powers of the presidency, knowing that Catholics are bound to follow what the Pope says and not necessarily what the court says or the law or the Constitution or anything else? Catholic president could be an empire, an emperor in no time, right? So how did he answer that? Well, he said, no, he said, my religion is just a private thing. I am not, uh, I'm not being, I'm not running to be the religious leader. I am running to be the political leader of the United States, the president of the United States. And people understood it and agreed with it. And it was the first time that I think that principle ever was accepted in the United States. It was terrific anti-Catholic bias in history. So there he was. He had to decide. He had to say, no, I am not going to follow the Pope. I'm going to follow the Constitution. And I think if you fought in World War II and swore that oath, and that's why you fought, and that's why your brothers and sisters were killed, then you follow that oath. All right, let's see what you guys got. Hello, Harry. Should there be a full accountability for transgressions committed under duress? Depends on the duress. Of course, if there's a gun to your head, no. If you're going to lose your pension, mm, I don't know. Let's see. All right. Good morning, David. Good morning, everyone. And thank you for being here. Um, the biggest the best work that's being done right now on the pandemic thing is Mark Kulak at Housatonic Live, and his recent exposition of Dr. Shi and the connection between that and her and remdesivir, and then the way that that was. I mean, the the timeline he's created is absolutely stunning, and you've just got to see it. Hey, Corky just read around about freedom of speech in film during the 20s and 30s, followed by prohibition. Yeah, reefer madness. Oh God, I don't like this. Brightmoor, New York Fed City Group with HSBC. Boy, you talk about a money laundering. I mean, they were in the opium finance business before it was illegal. So again, it's like having a charter, you know. Well, it's totally illegal to sell that stuff. Well, yeah, but our charter existed before it became illegal. So you can't interfere with my contract. Come on now. We have to have a rule of law. And all of those old contracts, like Thomas Jefferson would say, you got to change things sometimes. You got to change them. But no, digital tokens. Yeah, digital tokens means accountability in the big computer. I don't want my money to be accountable in the big computer. I want to be able to buy what I want and um, because that's all about taxing and all about shaking us down, frankly, because it is a mafia that's in charge now. It's no longer the Constitution. But that's not a reason not to vote. For goodness sakes, if you don't vote, then you're totally giving in. You're saying, okay, let's go back to chaos. Let's say there is no Constitution. There's nothing. We have no rights at all. You know, Where does that get you? It does not get you to utopia. You've got to keep the structure that we have and use it for good, and use it to clean out the corruption, the stench of these uniparty creeps. Hello, crypto. Words of the Lord Jakob Frank was really onto something there. Hmm. Well, it's interesting. I think Bill Taylor has done a lot of good reading and work on F- Frank uh, Frankism, and it is the Sabbatean Frankist is another one of those self-empowered. I know what's right, and very willing to totally turn the Bible on its head. You know, the Jewish Bible. 9 months, Harry. We have changed all cells in our bodies, but part of our illusions and consciousness begin. Uh-huh. Is there yeah. Well, does the earth work similarly? Now that is the noosphere of Vernansky. Well, Carol M and I were starting to talk about that in our previous, the one before this, the protecting the nest on McDuff Lives in October. And we were talking about the idea of Vernadsky's noosphere, and that meaning, a weird word, but what it means is that the biosphere itself is alive, and that we, we what we do affects, but it's not. It, we're not just moving chemicals around like dead stuff. It's alive. Now, to what extent it's conscious, I don't know. I mean, think about trees. Trees seem to have some type of consciousness that allows them to connect their roots together underground, as I understand it. But how how conscious is this noosphere? Well, let's study it some more. I think that idea of the biosphere being a great big cell, maybe, and we're just little pieces of protein running around in it. Who knows? It's fun though. Let's see. Let's get somebody we haven't heard from yet. Let's see. Yeah, Gospel of John works. The book of James is also interesting, and then of course you have Saint Paul. Oh, Vic Morrow's back. Hey, Vic. Willie Nelson Cromwell knows that tune. Oh, don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys. Yeah. Oh, I love Willie. I do. I love Willie. Used to sing about a few of his songs. Maybe I'll do that. Thursday we're gonna have music Thursday, 8 p.m. for Thanksgiving. I'm planning to play some fiddle and anything else you guys want, but it's American theme, Americana music, because this is what Dugan is talking about. Okay, you have to decide what your culture is, and to work to preserve it. Well, what is American culture, and what my musical experience, and I played a lot of country dances and just what would be really traditional music, fiddle tunes handed from one person to another, without sheet music, without recordings, just sit next to somebody and move the bow up and down and try to figure out what they're doing. And sooner or later, you're going to have yourself a tune. And so you collect these tunes. And to me, that's kind of like collecting threads of a tapestry that goes back in time. So you have music that I can look at a book of music that was, say these are the tunes that were popular in a certain area in 1750 or something, and I can play those tunes out of a music book, or perhaps I would learn a tune that may have roots in 1750, but has changed a little bit since then by the operation of, passing things from ear to ear, and maybe somebody thinking of a nice little ornament they want to add, or maybe a zig instead of a zag here or there. But you might have, the ancestor of it in the book, but now you're playing the modern version that, you got from your buddy that got it from his uncle. And, that kind of thing just fascinated me for, most of my life. And I played a lot of music of that sort. Uh, I brought my trombone playing from my high school and college days into it, and we ended up with about a 15-piece orchestra for a number of years called the Capitol Quick Steps. And with COVID, everything fell apart. The whole dance idea of going out and 200 people dancing in the same room, not happening. And I hope it comes back. But most of the people that would have gone to those dances are still, wearing masks, are still concerned about it, and maybe there is something to be concerned about. I don't know, but I think one of the effects has been, just as Klaus Schwab wanted, was to no going back. There's no going back to normal. But if you have a sense of what your music is, then that's part of preserving something that gives you a sense of who you are and where you fit in the world, where you fit in community, where you fit in the universe. And I think ultimately that Dugan is correct, that the liberal world model is to deprive us of our culture and our roots. Deracination. Well, it's exactly what happened to my family. The O'Loughlin's, as I told the story, when I went to Ireland this past August to launch my book there. And, one of the scholars there, Catherine Loughlin, a variation of O'Loughlin, she, used the word deracinated. And that means deprived of your roots. And it's exactly what happened to my family, my Irish family, when they came here, because my father could not tell us where in Ireland our ancestors were from. He didn't know. My grandfather didn't know. But, a distant grand uncle of mine actually had gone over to Ireland and found Ennis-Diamond and talked to one of the elder people there, Dr. Kelleher, and we made a connection. And I love having that connection. It just means something really strong to me. And when I get to go to Ireland, I feel, yeah, I feel at home. It's just nice. Not having any roots is bad, you know, and that's what they do to you. They take, that's why they create all of these immigration crises. That's why they're pushing people across borders all the time and forcing people of completely different cultures into your life to create conflict and to stress people out, but more importantly, to dilute and deprive us of the existing culture that we grew up in. Because they want to just turn us into serfs and use us as they want to, and if we lose all our connections, then there's nothing stopping them. Let's see what else. Here's Kate. Hi, Kate. The idea of God as the supreme decider, the anointer, the one who chooses, is responsible for a multitude of sins, crimes, and horrors. Okay. Okay. So yeah, I guess sometimes I think of Abraham and Isaac and God, you know, telling Abraham, to put his son, on the chopping block and raise his sword or and kill him. And, Abraham's faith believes that, he has to do what God says. But then, at the end, God intervenes, says, you have faith. And so you don't have to kill your son. Wow. Um, if you believe that God's talking to you, it's kind of like people like Ann Hutchinson. I hear from God because, you don't have to tell me what to do. God tells me what to do. So yeah, I think that's what you're saying, Kate, and that's the way I understand it. Brightmore says nix, n- whatever they get, in exivum, Rainier slaves, all required to confess hidden info. Thoughts give controllers easy blackmail material for members. Yeah, yeah, that's common. To make somebody confess things while they're under duress. You know, tied to a chair with the rubber hose beating on you, and you have to tell your darkest secrets, and then they got you. Yeah, I believe that. David Underdown could be a you would like to be RoboCop. Okay, all right. I like you as you are, David, but if you want to be RoboCop, it's this is liberal freedom. You are not liberated unless you can really achieve your goal of being RoboCop. So this is what we want. We want you to feel like you can always do whatever you think you need to do, and that means, you know, let's get you, to some of these high tech robot firms and hook you up. Hello, Robert. Elizabeth Holmes of Theranos scandal. Her father is the Enron scandal guy. Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, they bring their kids into it. And, that's the other thing that I'm just so grateful because a lot of those the creeps they brought their kids into it. Think about Alton Oshner down there in Louisiana, who actually gave the first polio vaccine, quote unquote, to his grandchildren, and one of them died. He was, he had to believe in what he was doing, and so he proved it. Uh, that crazy willingness to bring children, even anybody's children, for goodness sake, but your own children into these things, but they force them to. It's like William Colby's son apparently gave the the poisoned boots or shoes to Bob Marley. Did he know they were poisoned? I don't know, but somehow or another, the son of one of the most important spooks of our time ends up, being a courier of death, if that's true. But my father was able to keep us out of it, and so glad that he was. That's why when I went to his, well, I wrote about it in the book. You can read about that, about his last time I saw him in the hospital. All right, David, Theranos has a ridiculous correlation of nuclear threat initiative directors and founders, like the blood business took a dive for the foundation. Hmm. I don't know the Enron plot that well, but yeah, I'm sure everybody got paid off. Yeah, once again, Mark was amazing last night. Be sure and see it on Housatonic Live on YouTube. It's number 5 in his series on remdesivir. I think it's series 179. And yeah, I'd be surprised if he's wrong. I think he's got a really, really solid theory here, tying things together. And he's not done yet by any means. Huh, Comey at Boeing. I know. The fifth, all the Christmas tree ornaments on the F-35s, and he gets a big bonus. They take care of each other, but on the other hand, they can't step outside of the bounds. You end up like Gaddafi. All right, David, what else you want? You want to dance on the Trump Princess light up dance floor. Oh, I forgot that Nabila is now owned by Al Walid bin Talud Al Saud. Ah, well, maybe you can still dance on it. I don't know. Hmm. Corky says yes to the noosphere. Okay, that's good. That's like saying by deception we shall win. Does that mean that you're going to be honest? Because you're deceiving me by saying that? Yeah, biosphere is noosphere. Awareness and responsivity, I guess. Yeah. Hong Kong, yes, is the lord of HSBC cartels, indeed. The Order of St. John, isn't that interesting stuff there? You get into the British side of the Knights of Malta and the St. John's and all. There's a group called the SSJE, the Society of St. John the Evangelist, which I think is kind of an Anglican version of the Jesuits. Really worth some more study of that. But to wrap it up, because it's noon now, the bottom line is you've got to have a government of laws, or else you're going to have a government of men. And you know, I like the idea of preserving and protecting and defending the Constitution that we have. Um, if you don't, that's okay, but I think you have the duty now to step forward with a reasonable alternative, something that's actually doable and not a utopian dream. Hey, I'll see you guys tomorrow with Harley Schlanger. And for the very first time, David Underdown will be adding his amazing voice to our conversation with Harley. So that'll be tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please join us. And thanks for your support on Patreon.